This video is on people who took advantage of my good nature. A lot of people did this. When it came to actually keeping their word, everybody had an excuse. And I have to understand, because I'm good-natured. But a lot of these people were full of shit, like Brooke Freeman. Now, Candace took advantage of my good nature on more than one occasion. Lanny Engeline has a long history of doing that. Same thing with Miss Jerry. Telling me some bullshit story to get me to help her move out of a house that she's just going to move right back in with that dude later, or invite him to move all the way up to wherever she's moved to. And then she tells a different story. It's a companionship thing. We covered that in a previous video. Many people have done this. Sean, you made me unsafe. No, you made yourself unsafe by not coming forward. And you made me and many others unsafe by doing so. You don't get to appeal to my good nature when you do that. These people who, oh, my kids, my kids, my kids. No, not your kids. Stop hiding behind them. That's why you're in such a fucked up situation, is because your parents did the same thing you're doing. You need to break free of that. You need to stop being a pussy, as I keep getting told. Bravery is not the absence of fear. It's standing up in spite of it. At Candace Bondurant's, well, actually, before Candace Bondurant's, let's start off with before Natalie died. Natalie and Alicia took advantage of my good nature. They liked me because of it. But when they didn't tell the truth and it resulted in me being harmed, they had no remorse about it. None whatsoever. Police took advantage of my good nature. There's a lot of people that I went to try to get help, but none of them would shut the fuck up or communicate with me in effective fashion. That's a major issue. If texting is not an effective way to communicate, maybe you should find a way to communicate. Maybe you should try what I asked, which is listening. When Natalie disappeared, I tried to help find her. Despite all the things that she put me through, I still tried to help find her. I offered her every penny that I had. When I was at Candace's, many people took advantage of my good nature. From Shelley Campbell to Danica Garner to Miss Candace herself. Candace has a history of doing this. Saying, oh, well, my ex-husband will take away the kids because you're staying here, Sean. Yeah, that happened. That seriously happened. Then later, when I was in Virginia, she said that she kicked me out because I quit my job. I didn't quit my job. I lost my job because I was having heart issues. Because I had to go to the hospital in Julesburg. But she lied to me and used her kids to do so. Oh, my poor kids. My ex will try to take them from me because you're here. Oh, poor me. And I fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. That's when I was in Virginia in 2016, that I dropped her ass off. Don't fucking play me, bitch. So, When Natalie disappeared and I was at Candace Bondurant's and she took advantage of my good nature again, well, she claimed that the police were harassing her when she went to take her kids to school and when she was at work. I'm being targeted by the police because of you, Sean. You have to go. Then later on, she changed her story, didn't she? Of course she did. It's because she fucking lied. What do you expect? And what was that over? Well, that was over police in Haxton, Colorado, and Shelley Campbell taking advantage of my good nature by trying to set up a scenario where I was afraid for Miss Shelley's safety. That wasn't just a pocket dial. They legit tried to make it sound like there was a fight, like someone was being harmed. And that officer was already waiting outside. A lot of people did this. Now, there's a lot of people who had to be afraid for their children. Alex Furman, he's a lawyer in Colorado, had to be afraid of helping me and speaking out because of his children. The same thing with Darren O'Connor. He was having problems with his ex, and he had to be afraid of helping me because it could be used to prevent him from having his child. Later on, he changed his story. Darren O'Connor is a good lawyer because he's a liar. But these weren't the only people who did that. There were a lot of people who did that. Sean, I have to be afraid for my family. You damn right you do, but not from me. If you're going to take advantage of my good nature, I'm going to say something. With Miss Shelley, she tried to coordinate with the police to make it seem like she was being harmed and the police wouldn't do anything about it. And I had to be afraid for Miss Shelley's safety. And according to what Miss Shelley had to say about Ted, yeah, she was saying that she had to be afraid for her safety and her children's safety. Same thing with Danica Garner. Alicia gets a protection order against me because I was illegally prevented from going to court. Pamela Cardi took advantage of my good nature too. Meanwhile, the person that these people all have to be afraid of is Ted Bollinger. Ted. He's shown this time and again. While you guys accuse me of doing things, Ted is actually doing these things. Actually doing them. They took advantage of my good nature at my grandmother's funeral. When Ted got onto Alicia's account and thought that he would do something that Blaine did as well. Blaine was harassing me and threatening my life on James Golden's post on Facebook and erasing it right after I'd reply because he's a fucking coward, afraid of his own words. They manipulated me by using my good nature. Kara Johnson Miles did this, pretended like she was an autism advocate. A lot of these people lied outright to the courts. Like Danica and Shelley, pretending that Alicia was their daughter. And Kara Johnson Miles, who was busted lying and manipulating, was allowed to slander me in court, and her slander prevented me from having an honest day in court as well. She claimed that me and Natalie used to date, which is an outright lie. Pamela Cardi wouldn't do a goddamn thing about anything. She outright refused to do her job at every step of the way. Manipulating my good nature by pretending she got into a car accident so that she didn't have to show up for an important court date. An important court date where the charges should have been dropped because I had been illegally detained for longer than is legally allowed in the state of Colorado. So I was worried about Pamela Carty because she got into a car accident. She didn't get into a car accident. She was faking it. Because I had threatened to sue her repeatedly by that point for not doing her job. When I was at my grandmother's funeral, Ted and Alicia took advantage of my good nature because Ted was on Alicia's YouTube account messaging me on Alicia's YouTube account while for 7 hours giving no indication that Alicia was okay. And Alicia had my phone number. She had called me from Shelly Garner's phone on the 29th of December of 2017 to ask me where Natalie was at. I didn't know. For 7 hours, he gave no indication that she was okay until I called 911. And an officer who I had had previous dealings with over the things that Natalie and her family were doing and her friends were doing, including Tim Beeson, who is a predator. Tim Beeson started fucking Natalie when she was 14. Did you know that? Some of you did. Alicia knows that. Alicia is well aware of that. Meanwhile, Alicia protects her own predator, her father, a man who she had claimed was evil, a man who she was trying to get Shelley Campbell safe from while I was in Virginia in 2016. She was trying to get me an apartment there in Chesapeake, Virginia, or Norfolk, Virginia. I didn't want to stay there that long. She didn't ask me before trying to look that stuff up. But she looked those things up because she wanted me close. Her and Natalie both did. Until I had a panic attack in the middle of the road while severely dehydrated. And I've shown the evidence of that, so you can kiss my ass. But then there's Laura Nelson, who has to be afraid of losing her son and being retaliated against by the police there in Nebraska if she comes forward. Now, she claimed that she would if the police came and asked her about it. The police aren't going to come and ask her about it. She has to take the initiative to go down there herself and do it. She took advantage of my good nature, didn't she? No, she didn't. Laura Nelson is legit afraid. She didn't manipulate me by using my good nature, like the rest of these people did. With Alicia, they were able to manipulate me into threatening Ted because, well, on previous occasions prior, there were situations where I had to fear that Ted had harmed his own family, and the police wouldn't do a goddamn thing. With Alicia, that wasn't the first one. Prior to that was Miss Shelley. Prior to that was Natalie. And it was the police, unwilling to do a goddamn thing about it, that scared the fuck out of me. When I threatened Ted Bollinger's life, there were specifics. If he harmed any of his family, any of these people who got protection orders against me from illegal court dates later on, like Danica Garner, Shelley, Rose, or any of their children,